Hey, we are live with our first committee meeting for the new committee. So, first of all, welcome to everybody who's watching the committee meeting externally. This is the committee meeting for March 2019, and just after our AGM, where we elected a new committee. So a few introductions are probably in order because people don't necessarily know who we all are. So I'll start. My name's Owen. I am the chair of JavaScript New Zealand, for want of a better term, and I've been on the committee for a wee while. I am based in Wellington, and like all things, JavaScript and welcoming and friendly. Jen, do you want to give yourself an introduction?
Sure. So I'm Jen. I've been on the committee for a little while. This time around, I'm the secretary, which means that I'll be taking the minutes through the meeting. So my apologies if I seem a little bit distracted because of that. And I'll hand over to Kevin to introduce himself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kevin. I am based in Auckland. And yeah, I've been on the committee since the beginning as well. And yeah, that's me. Yeah, I run the JS meetup here in Auckland. And yeah, I'm loud and obnoxious. So, so yeah, take it away, Fabian.
Hey, Fabian here. I'm, I guess, treasurer now for the committee. Just started, so yeah, hi. I forgot who I was giving it to. James, you want to go ahead?
Sure. James Pluck here. I've been on the committee, sort of came in halfway through last year, helping out with treasurer. And this time around, I'm just a useful dog's body in the committee, and just wanting to help out as best I can. Based in Wellington. And Oren, I'll hand over to you.
Hi, I'm Oren. I'm new on the committee this year, and yeah, I'm down in Wellington. I do DevOps most of the time, which is kind of like, let's talk about empathy and building better processes. And I'm really happy to be on the committee now to help with inclusivity and building a more diverse community. So that's been a real important thing to me. And I'll hand back over to Owen.
Thanks very much. Welcome all of you to our first committee meeting for this new committee. So a few things just to lay down some ground rules here in the committee. We are as light a committee as it's possible to get on a society. We don't expect the world from you or a lot of your time. We expect you to turn up to a few committee meetings during the year, help us make decisions on some key important topics as we decide a committee and at a committee level, and sometimes jump in on a few working groups. So, for example, we've had working groups to devise how to put forward no-bots or how to put forward a conference in the past. So if those are things that spin your wheels, or if you see something that you want to jump into, you can bring them to committee level and we can discuss them. You're also a conduit for the rest of the society to talk to us. So if you hear something or somebody wants to talk to us, you are more than welcome to relay those messages to a committee meeting. Did I cover pretty much everything there, Jen?
Yes, and just a note that I think you should all have, well, it's public, there's a GitHub repository for the society meetings, which Owen posted earlier, and the issues tab is where we try and keep track of things that are ongoing, so you can assign things to people and put comments on and that sort of thing. Hopefully we'll get the chance to have a little bit of a clear out of that today because there's some fairly stale stuff in there.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Thank you for that info, Jen. So we will be diving into some of those top issues, cleaning them out, talking about them at least at a high level. But before we do that, I wanted to make sure a few people are welcomed into their roles. So Fabian, welcome to being a treasurer here for JavaScript New Zealand. Thank you so much for taking on that role, pretty much at the last minute, I'll admit, but really do appreciate you helping us out there. So from here, what I will need to do is talk to you out of band around getting access to our bank accounts. So the society does have a number of bank accounts that you'll have signatory access to. you have access to our Xero account, so you can already track what's coming in and going out. What will mainly happen is financial matters will flow through you, so you'll be the point of contact for when we have to pay an invoice or when the accountant wants to talk to us, which is few and far between. There aren't a huge amount of onerous things right now, especially while we're not running a conference actively right this second. Certainly, as a conference comes up, you help us set the budget, but you shouldn't be alone in doing that. You should always feel that there is other people on the committee to lean on. And that goes as general advice for everybody on the committee. Don't ever take on anything too big that you don't feel like you can. Please feel free to share the workload, share things that are on your mind as you go on. Yeah. So first of all, I wanted to open it up to any questions from committee members. Anything that we can talk about, anything that you want to discuss, having come onto the committee fresh or not so fresh.
I do have a quick point of order from the AGM. Fabian was very kind to step in and offer to do the treasurer, take the treasurer role, but I don't know that that's actually been formally ratified. So I'd like to propose we do a quick vote to ratify that now, if that's okay. So if you could just indicate yay or nay, basically. That can be as simple as giving a thumbs up. Yep. Okay, good. Kevin, yes, thank you. Cool. So I'll note that that's been ratified.
Awesome. Thank you for making sure we take care of that. I wouldn't want anybody to go foul of the rules. We do have a charter. We do have, we are bound by conduct for the society's office. So you can read all that documentation. It's all in the GitHub repository if you want the minutiae of how that works. But certainly we do have to make sure things are done by the book, just for your own peace of mind, essentially. But again, I'll ask again whether there are any questions, thoughts, comments, things that you want clarity on as you step into this new role.
Yeah, I think it's all pretty straightforward, I think. So
awesome.
No problem.
Cool. Well, welcome all of you to 2019 and our committee. So we've obviously just done the AGM, and as we look through the issues list, hopefully you've all got a copy of that. We certainly still have a topic that has probably come to the forefront recently around moderation. So I'm going to make some room to talk about that today. But I want to close off a couple of issues. So I think 2018 AGM has been done. So I think we can close that one off as an issue. We also have a few that are assigned. So we probably want to discuss things in a future committee meeting. So I'm just going to list them out. And if you want to bring them up today, let me know. Otherwise, we'll assume that people are okay to push to a later committee meeting. So we have talked previously about our need to have history on Slack versus the fact that we don't want to incur a huge amount of cost for Slack. We have 1,000-odd users registered for our Slack instance, which makes paying for Slack prohibitive, seeing as it's a per-user payment model. And we have thought about looking at some other tools that have been suggested. We haven't made much progress on that in the couple of years since it was registered. So I'm happy to talk about that at a later committee meeting. I don't think that's urgent because it's been on the back burner for a few years. Not suddenly getting worse, but happy to hear other thoughts.
Would something like, well, with one Slack instance that I had it so I could receive any message and just post it somewhere else, so save it in another log. Would it be useful if we just had a log of all the public channels out somewhere?
It's less the history per se for like recording purposes and more that just we lose our kind of community history because we have so many messages. We get through the history limitation very, very quickly. So, you know, you can't go back more than a couple of weeks on most channels, which is obviously not great. So logging to somewhere external might help with some things, but I don't think it really fulfills the main purpose of why people are keen to have their history.
Yeah, so I'm more thinking of something that is public that other people can also search rather than for us.
If we're pulling it offline like that, then there needs to be some sort of indexing process that goes through it. Like there's going to be just a wall of random text effectively that's, while valuable as part of the Internet Archive, difficult to work with in a meaningful way. So I'd want to talk more about what goal we're trying to achieve with regards to let's have our history available.
Well, I think it'd still be beneficial just to have something out there. I can't see Slack giving us a license or something to use their history in any way. So
there has been some investigation on that front. Where it sits now, and you can read through the ticket for more details, is basically that we would need to have non-profit status to make that a reality. That's not totally out of the question, but the likelihood is it would need to be US non-profit status, which is probably definitely out of the question because that's very expensive. I would suggest that if you've got some ideas, Fabian, that you actually put some comments onto the ticket. We don't need to resolve it tonight, but it would be interesting to engage the people that originally opened that ticket and see if your ideas resonate with them, perhaps, and then we can come back to it. Does that sound reasonable?
Yep, that makes sense to me.
Awesome. Thanks. Yeah, so feel free to comment on there. And we have been down the rabbit hole of trying to work out whether we can be treated as a charity by Slack. So far, no luck. Doesn't mean it's a no completely, but certainly that seems like a hard line to drive down. The next issue on the list is to create a better onboarding process so people are aware of our society code of conduct and rules. This came up a number of times. People, while you have to sign up to the code of conduct, that was our first change to make sure that Slack-in actually forced you to tick a box. It didn't actually check whether you read them and understood them. I think we are going through a period of working out our onboarding process as a whole. Today we switched off our self sign up to Slack while we work out better signups to combat spam and abuse. We certainly ought to investigate making sure that this is part of what we do as a replacement for that. Keen for any thoughts right now for the main things that we should look at, or just to take some time over the next week or so to comment on that issue would be great.
Was there some tooling that you thought might help with that? I know you've been working on something. Owen, are you happy to talk about that now, or do you want to keep working on it a little bit and then come back to us?
So today, like literally just before the committee meeting, I was installing the Weebly Slack app, which is something that was built by WeAllJS Society, or whatever WeAllJS kind of technically termed is. It's a Slack community essentially, which will allow us to have better admin commands like moderation commands, so that people can send us messages and call for admins and moderators in a channel, and should, as far as I understand reading it, give us a better way to invite people into the channel, like at least a moderation step where we get to choose whether people are actually valid users or not. I want to make sure that we don't abuse that, obviously. We want to make sure that this is a welcome and opening society and somebody can't just say no to their friends or their enemies, I guess. Although if their enemies are not people who would sign up to the code of conduct, then maybe that's a moot point. But also we want to make sure that people who are signing up to that have acknowledged the code of conduct, and I'm not sure we have a way of doing that right now. Like, yeah.
That sounds good. I'll probably update that ticket and with some details and assign it to you, and you can come back to us and let us know how well that might work.
That sounds good to me as I investigate it. Next on the list is transcription of the NZJSCon videos. I know we looked a little bit into this, but I don't know if we went any further. Jen, do you have something?
Yeah, sorry, that's a very old ticket, and that's kind of was left with me, so I apologize on that front. I have transcripted the opening video, but I didn't get much further than that. So YouTube has auto transcription, which is cool, and that stuff is viewable and usable, but the quality is pretty rubbish, for lack of a better word, and it does quite poorly with technical topics. So it probably took me about an hour of effort to edit a 10-minute transcript. The tooling was quite nice. I did wonder if we had some leftover budget, if we might employ somebody to do that. But it's been a long time since the conference now. So I think we might let that one lie for now, but I think that we should note that if we are going to go ahead with any more conferences, which is a different topic of discussion, that we would try and budget in that transcription up front, and possibly even look at live transcription services, which I believe some of the conferences in Wellington since NZJSCon have taken advantage of, and work quite well. So I'll probably type up some notes on that one and close it, unless people would like to step in and say, oh no, I've got a perfect solution, why don't we do X? Anybody?
Yeah, so I certainly agree that we are diminishing points of return if we do transcription now. There is less viewage of those videos anyway. It obviously sits awkwardly that we haven't got good transcription on those. I don't think anybody can disagree with that. However, what I would suggest, maybe what I'm proposing, is that we take the money. There is some money left over from the last conference, but maybe we should channel that towards transcription for the next conference. So acknowledging this as an issue that we need to solve next time.
I actually think that that's a really good idea, as treating it as a learning issue. That said, Jen, I'd be interested in just catching up with you sometime to have a look at the tools that YouTube have got, and we might be able to divide and conquer. If the tools are relatively easy, there could be, if 3 or 4 of us pick just one video each, we could get through them reasonably quickly, I imagine.
Okay, that sounds plausible. I'll make a note and I will catch up with you probably sometime next week about that.
That sounds good. Yep.
Cool. Thanks, James.
Okay.
Cool. I'm just going to point out a couple of other ones. There's some open ones around NZJS sponsorship. Jen, if you could just take a quick look at those, if they're still valid or not, and if not, just close them up. I suspect they're left over from conference time. We have a topic around better password management for the society accounts. So just for context, everybody, we do have a LastPass account that was set up back in the day. It is funded to a certain extent, I think by donation right now, by sponsorship. I think, Jen, you might have put in something at some point. Oh, that was just email.
Yeah, no, the LastPass account that we're using is a free tier,
Okay.
Unfortunately. That ticket was with me for a long time to investigate. That was definitely a ticket that I took on going, oh, surely this must be a really easy problem to solve. And it turns out not so much, unfortunately. All of the password management solutions seem to have a price per user tier when you need to share things. The fundamental limit that we have with the free sharing that we've got is it's a maximum of 5 people. And as we've had committee members rotate in and out, those 5 people are no longer the right 5 people. There are committee members that do have access. Owen and myself certainly still do, and I imagine Kevin does as well. But we don't own the admin of that shared account. And the person that set it up no longer has access to it either. So we're a little bit of a loggerheads with this one. Again, it sounds really stupid and easy to solve, but I have drawn a blank with it. If there is a technical solution that somebody knows that we could do, then that would be cool. But otherwise, I'm actually tempted to say we might need to use some kind of open source password management solution and just put that on the Google Drive, ensure that only committee members have access to it and the password for it. And that's going to be really clunky and annoying to use, but then at least the whole of the committee can have access, whereas right now it's quite limited who can get access to that password store.
I think I'd rather have something clunky than something we don't have admin access to. So, yeah.
Agreed with that. In the past, when I've had contractors coming in and out of Courage, I used a password encrypted KeePass using the open source KeePass product. KeePass also has the facility to sync with Google Drive, which makes it useful. So you can sync with Google Drive from multiple locations. So that may be a very viable option. Clunky, yes, but not as clunky as it could be. Thinking along the lines of like a shared Excel spreadsheet or something like that. But yeah, it may work better than LastPass with having to pay for every account.
I think this would need some exploration as well into the process around as committee members rotate in and out. How do we manage actually revoking their access? If they've downloaded that blob, now what? Is this a question that we should be thinking about at all?
I would be inclined to say that we have a measure of trust with former committee members. That means that we can afford to treat this naively for right now, and we might need to come up with a better solution down the line. But thankfully, we're all here because we want the society to succeed, and I wouldn't anticipate former committee members posing any issues in that respect. Certainly, we would get rid of short-term access, but I don't really see any need for cycling credentials or anything like that personally.
I think I'm on the opposing end of that. I think I'd rather cycle no matter what.
That sounds like a ticket should be opened and some exploration and research done. That was a terrible sentence.
Yes, seconded. No, I'll second that.
Okay, so there's already a ticket. It is number URL
72.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I tell you what, I am happy to do the legwork of transferring passwords and swapping them. If somebody else does the legwork of setting up the KeePass and the Drive synchronization to put it into, would that be a reasonable division of labour? Has somebody got some bandwidth to set up the receiving end?
I can set something up.
Yeah. Sorry, what was that, Kevin?
I said I could set something up with that, yeah.
Do we want to investigate if there's a better option for one that allows us to remotely revoke access?
I already looked. It's expensive. If we're willing to spend lots of money every month, then yes, totally. But like I say, the pricing models are per user. They're sort of $15 per user per month, which adds up quite quickly.
It should be good to actually note down those other options as well, just for future use if we are to look into it further.
Yeah. Yep. Sure. No, that sounds good.
I think there is some notes on the ticket. You're more than welcome to explore it, ask questions there. Let's make a straw man. Let's give ourselves the next realistically 2 months in order to get this done. But it would be great if that could be done. So by the end of May would be perfect if we can actually get some traction on that. My only technical simpleton solution might be just to PGP encrypt something and sign it with all of our keys. But yeah, that would be not the easiest, but also layman kind of tool rather than KeePass or whatever we want to use. But
there might be some interest in, you say PGP, using Keybase for that. So, but again, that should be in the ticket, and we talk about that offline.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So there might be simple ways that we can sign the document and share it amongst ourselves. Might be an easy way to do that. But anyway, let's talk about that async in the ticket. I don't think we're going to make any forward progress today. I've got a few things about moderation, so I'll leave them all for a wider discussion. But we have one ticket on a Speaking at Overseas conference fund that was raised by Anna a while ago, and it was a suggestion. I don't think we actually made any forward progress on it, but the idea being that we could become a society that could fund those trips and invites to go and speak elsewhere. My thoughts are we haven't had a huge amount of people, we've had nobody request that kind of action apart from Anna. Not to say that there's not a need for it, but right now we don't have the funds or the ability to do that. I wouldn't have said. But if you want to keep that ticket open, let me know. Otherwise, I will archive it off as being not in our near future. And then there was an issue around learning materials, but I think that has been fixed up a little bit. There were some books hovering around, and I think we iced it. Well, we didn't ice it, but we certainly haven't got a permanent place for those to reside. But certainly EDA has taken a bit of responsibility for that learning resource. Which I think I haven't skipped over anything. There was something about forming working groups to address areas needing improvement, which everybody's more than welcome to read, but we did discuss it slightly, and we took it offline a little bit. I think it was just like a call for working groups from the conference, from Alex's talk at the conference. So I think we can archive that off. Which brings us on to the big topic of the day, so moderation. Fabian, seeing as you opened an issue only 9 hours ago on this, I was wondering if you'd like to kick off our discussion on that.
Yeah, so I was just wanting to first make a process really for us to follow when moderating. It's not going to be able to fit into all issues that come up, but I mean, generally, if we it should be pretty straightforward just to keep a record as to what's happening in our community and what's actually popping up more, or if we actually get rid of an issue completely. So yeah.
So there's a few things to moderation that we've discussed in the past. So first of all was having a central place for people to talk to moderators. So I'm certainly in the process of getting this this tool in place, essentially, that will ping a moderator's channel and allow us to send messages to a group of moderators. We currently don't have a way of electing or openly adding moderators to JavaScript New Zealand. It is just people who've been on the committee before or have some sense of influence over the channel. We do need to really think about that process in my head.
I feel like there was a call for moderators at one point a couple of years ago. I'm not sure if anything came of it, but yeah, I'd certainly be keen to be sharing out that workload further than just the committee. Yeah, that's all I have to say on that, basically.
So certainly in June of 2017, issue 66 is about our call for moderators to come and join the channel. I think we need to make that much more transparent and plain as to how to become a moderator, what being a moderator entails, what the process is, as Fabian quite rightly points out, of moderation. Like, what are the decision processes you go through in order to moderate, to delete? What do you have to make sure that we record when we delete? I don't feel like I'm equipped to answer all those questions, and certainly I don't think one person should be writing all of those guides. I would like to make this a community and committee effort to, over the next couple of months, actually write a moderation guide, actually write a guide for what it means to elect a moderator, how moderators get elected and de-elected as well, I guess. We need to think about both of those things. And I'm sure a ton of other things that I haven't even thought about
Surely there must be existing community open source documentation on moderation practices that we could at least use as a starting point.
I was thinking the same thing. In that, I mean, we've blatantly and openly plagiarized other ways of working, like the running the AGM and that sort of thing, electing committee members. So, yeah, is there any other society or something that's got a good one that we can start with?
Kev, did I see your hand up? Or Oren, did you?
It's worth talking to not necessarily society communities about the kind of processes they're using. What came to mind immediately for me was the LGBT in tech community, which is where the Wheelie app that you're installing came from. They built that for their needs. So they may have processes and it might be worth looking into there, or other communities that may not have been the ones we would immediately look at.
That's a really good line of investigation. I'm happy to take that on, so I'm going to start investigating a moderation guide document, charter, if you like, so that we actively start talking about what we are going to moderate and what that means and what the outcomes of those are, how you challenge moderation, how our moderators are empowered to act fast and decisively and recover from mistakes, like in a simple case, would be the main one, and also feel confident when they don't make a mistake as well. We don't want people being bullied because they're moderators. We don't want people being abused because they delete messages. We want people to be free to make mistakes. So certainly, Oren, yeah.
I wanted to say, as we're going down this route and really thinking about how to onboard moderation and really formalize the moderation process, is building an inclusive space means picking a bias. And spaces by default bias towards the existing status quo. So any moderator training and any moderator guides we need to build and think about and work with are going to have to be asserting different biases, like biases towards the minority inclusion that we want to see, versus let's just treat everyone equally.
Thankfully, our existing code of conduct does codify a bias towards protecting minority interests. So if you'd like to offer any more feedback on that, but I would suggest going and reading the code of conduct, because it does do a pretty good job of outlining that we do that, I think, in my opinion. But we certainly need to be making sure that new moderators are bearing that in mind rather than just having it written down.
And that's what I meant, is more the how to formalize that, how to, as a moderator, use that information in your decision making. That's kind of where I was going.
Yeah, I think that's a super valid point. We often get drawn into straw man arguments that have no basis, and we don't really want moderators to feel like they have to defend every single decision to the masses. We want to make sure that they are following relatively straightforward guides that are drawn up to protect people not like me, let's put it that way. So I can certainly buy into that, but I'm happy to do some investigation and maybe put something towards the committee towards the beginning of next month, if that is a suitable timeline for everybody.
I think that sounds really good. In my opinion, I think we might want to reach out for more moderators prior to that, so that they can be a voice in that discussion as well when you've got that for us to start having a look at. Does that sound reasonable to people?
I think so. I do want to make sure that the voices are biased in the right way, if that makes sense. I don't want minority voices to be drowned out by the status quo, as Oren quite rightly points out. Oren, yeah.
I was just wondering if we could have a quick rundown on kind of what the concern around the number of moderators is right now.
So for me, the number one concern is that I've done a lot of moderation over the last month. That is path to burnout very quickly. That is path to me being the single point of making decisions where I shouldn't have all the power, if that makes sense. Like, it makes me second guess whether I should be doing something or not. Whereas having a moderator group at least makes it checkable, enforceable, transparent, and open, as much as those things can be.
And for myself, I have also done quite a lot of moderation after the last month, and I explicitly didn't ever want to be a moderator for the Slack channel because I'm not very active on the Slack channel, and thus my only interaction with the Slack channels for negative things, which is kind of a bit gross. But I know that we have lots of users who are very active and using the Slack channel a lot. And I think it would be a more balanced responsibility for them if they're seeing the good and the bad, as opposed to myself, where I'm just seeing the bad right now, which is not much fun.
For what it's worth, my action on the Slack channel is up and down, like a yo-yo at times. Sometimes I'm very active, sometimes I'm not. I'm happy to be to help with the moderation while I'm in there. Unfortunately, a lot of things just go straight through my oblivious filter. So I just need to make myself more aware of some of the issues. Just segueing off the idea of getting information from other communities, I have got a couple of contacts into some of the more long-established US communities around, particularly FAT acceptance, and some of the other fringe communities like that. And so I'm willing to reach out to my colleagues and friends in those other communities and see if there's something else that we can get to help with that. But yeah, one of my concerns around being a moderator is I'm not entirely sure where the lines need to be drawn. So I'd appreciate some guidance.
And just for the record, you know, because we're obviously recording this and maybe some people are watching. Hi, people who are maybe watching. We did not used to have a channel where moderators could explicitly discuss things. We had a closed channel for the committee, but the moderators are a superset of that. We have more mods than we have current committee members. We have since now got a channel which all the moderators are in, and if we do recruit any further moderators, we will presumably invite them to that channel, so that, as James said, if you're not sure about something, you can check in with somebody else and ensure that we're making the decisions that we think are the right ones.
Yeah, I think the only further concern I have is making sure that we have coverage. So moderation is infinitely easier if you start early, like if you start at the beginning of a conversation or start at the point where a message is made, rather than when 13 comments have been made about that comment being bad or whatever it is. It just is an easier job, but it relies on somebody being active and online, and that is just not us. We've all got jobs, whereas between moderators, we could have better coverage. I wouldn't say we want entirely 100% coverage. We want to be forgiven if it's middle of the night and something happens. I'm sorry, that's going to happen. We also want safe spaces where people can go like away from the computer. Like you need to be encouraged to turn off Slack if you are worried, and let us know and we can come in and clear it out. But certainly for it to land on just one or two people's shoulders, which is what it's been doing up until the point where we set up moderation channels, was not fair on anybody, really, to be honest.
I think you raise a really good point there, that we're never going to have 100% coverage, and that's maybe something we do need to be a bit more explicit about, because yeah, none of us are being paid to do this, and we aren't going to have 24/7 coverage. And I agree that the moderation is easier if we nip things in the bud, but I don't think we're always going to succeed at that. So that might be something that we might want to consider updating on the website's code of conduct page, where we mention the code of conduct reporting process, just so that people have an expectation there that, yes, we are going to deal with things, but unfortunately, due to reality, there may be some delay there, unfortunately.
We should also, when we start a bit further down the moderation track, like generally announce that instead of dogpiling on people who are saying things that are not great, just immediately pinging the mods. And because otherwise it will get away from us in these ways and turn into a big flameout that is not fun for anyone. If someone's just pinging immediately, that will save a lot of grief for us later, I think.
And that's something that I've been trying to enforce in my recent mod notes. I've been putting the committee email address in there, and if you manage to succeed with putting that in Slack messaging tool in, that's going to be a lot easier than the email loop. So I think people will be more likely to use that. So that sounds really positive, and I'm glad that you've got that on your radar.
That in Slack tool, would that be something like they could just send a message to @moderator, for instance, or a private message to moderator group?
Yeah, you just do /admin and then type the message, and it gets posted to the moderator channel as a. If you look at the committee channel, there's a couple of example messages that I posted there.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that you can see how that looks. But yeah, it's very much a way for anybody who's not in that private channel to still message that channel and let us know. So it's an easy way for us to get feedback. And I think certainly giving people the sense that they don't have to fight that battle, they don't have to be the one enforcing everything. Sorry, Oren, I'm gonna. I don't mean to call you out or look at you on that one. But certainly, you can step away and let us know, and we will come back to it. It's just like I'm sometimes in a meeting for like 6 hours. I'm not gonna jump on Slack. I'm really sorry. I want to, but I can't. And also, some of those decisions are harder to make. Like, let's be fair. Some of the conversations are nuanced, and we have to think about context, and we have to dive into it, like, and give people the appropriate warnings or the appropriate feedback. Like, it's all very well to say that we will ban you immediately or delete your messages, and that's not an appropriate thing for somebody who's just made a mistake. Like, we have to be accepting that people occasionally make mistakes. That's just what happens. So we need nuances of responses.
Yeah, and also the fact that many of us have developed some reasonably solid friendships within the community, and sometimes it can be hard to actually say to someone who's your friend, hey, look, back off, we're going to have to, this is the third time this week that you've been a little bit nasty, and we're going to have to give you a 1 week stand down or whatever. So having a spread of moderators does make that a little bit easier. For instance, the one that I did recently, a polite message to ask the comment to be deleted was respected and immediately actioned by the person, and I thought that worked quite well.
Yeah, and just to follow on with that, remember, if people are genuinely making a mistake, then given, a little bit of headroom, they're going to realize, given a note from us, that they have made the mistake. But where people are doubling down, then I don't think we should have any complication in at least deleting messages. It's okay to note that you deleted something and to say, this just isn't the right time right now. Go and take a little walk and think about it. In communities that I've seen that have very good moderation are not afraid to just sort of, as I say, nip it in the bud early. But I feel like we are mostly on the same page with this. So I'd suggest that we wait for Owen's first draft. And James, you mentioned that you might have some communities that you could reach out to. Oren, you mentioned that you have some communities that might have some guidance. I would suspect that those would be really good inputs for Owen to have a look at. So if you could pass that on to him, I think that would be a really good starting place.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Thank you so much. And well done for bringing that circle right around to the end. So I will commit to getting something on paper early next month for everybody to have a read about, and I will share it with the whole moderation channel. So in the meantime, I think we should put a call out for moderators. So people who want to moderate or feel like they could be good, I still want to make sure those get vetted to a certain extent. It shouldn't just be, hey, I want to be a moderator, therefore I am a moderator. There should be a certain sense of that you understand the issues at play here. So certainly we need a way that that can happen. Right now, I think moderators should just come through the committee and make sure that we're all comfortable with them being a moderator, as it were. But beyond that, I want to make sure there's a codified way of adding moderators. It's not just friends of friends kind of effect. But yeah, I'll put that all in the document.
I do have one other housekeeping thing related to the change we've made to the sign-in. I understand the reasoning why we've capped that off for the time being, but I do want to note that the link from our website to the how you become a member currently just leads to a page that says offline for maintenance, which is only really acceptable in the very short term, I think. So if we can just put it to a static web page that says, hey, email us, that might be a reasonable stopgap.
I think if we just put a Netlify form up, it's free, so we can just point the domain or whatever at it, and then have a form that just emails someone or committee. Just exactly the same as what we've got now, just...
we actually already have a committee contact form on the website, I believe. Is that true?
This would be more one specifically for signing up.
So to be clear, what I wanted to do was just give me 24 hours to get clear on what this Wheelie app can do and can't do. I didn't feel like it was safe to keep the public sign up while I worked that out. So I just took that down in the quickest way possible without like people asking me lots of questions about broken pages. I certainly, if I can't solve it within 24 hours, then putting up a static page is exactly what we want to do, or a sign up form. I will want some feedback as to the questions that we want to ask people on that sign up form. So while it's okay to say we need your email address and your name so that you know you're a real person, but we also want to make sure that you sign up to the code of conduct and things like that. So so there's more nuance than just a quick ping the committee that we will have to decide on as a committee. So yeah. Okay, I think we've run through all the issues at play here. There's a few to join up and clean up. I'll certainly go through that. I'll join all the moderation ones together to make sure that we have a consistent thread there. And everybody seems to have good ownership of the existing ones, and we can close off a few. But yeah, any other business that people want to bring?
I was just wondering if we wanted to try again at getting a conference organised maybe later this year, or perhaps give ourselves a bit of leeway and make it early next year.
So I'd like to speak to that briefly, if that's okay. For those of you that don't know, I organised the first version of the conference. And the very brief potted history of what has happened since then is I tried to hand it over to Auckland. Unfortunately, our folks up in Auckland who were looking at that weren't able to take that forwards. Since then, someone that was on last year's committee, Anna, was quite keen to bring it back to Wellington. There was a discussion channel on the Slack for that that I haven't seen any messages in a couple of months. The original time frame, I believe, that she was mooting was for, I want to say May or June this year. I personally feel that I'm not sure how many irons are still in the fire with that organisation or effort, but that's really, really soon now, and I don't know that we're far enough progressed to take that forwards. However, I would very much like to check in with Anna and just, you know, see where she got up to. And, you know, I don't want to step in and take it away from her if she has been doing a lot more work behind the scenes, although, as I say, I am quite skeptical that that time frame is realistic now. James, if you're keen to follow this up, would you mind getting in touch with Anna and basically getting a status report on where things got to?
Yeah, sure. That's not a problem. I mean, I work in the same building with her, so that's no worries. And I know that she has been a bit of a driving force behind the Wellington JS meetups. So yeah, I'll take that on board. I'll catch up with Anna hopefully later this week, early next week, and I'll feedback to the committee about that.
And then I'd really love to make that a focus of the next committee meeting once we've got that information, if that sounds reasonable to folks.
And I agree with you that May or June this year is really too short a time frame. If we wanted it May or June, then next year is definitely a better time frame to aim at.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think it's probably one of our core drivers now as a society, is like putting on that conference and putting on a space that we can talk about it. But certainly we should think about what that entails and talk about it at the next committee meeting.
And just a housekeeping thing, I will probably need a couple of days to formally write up the minutes, but because you're going to be updating those tickets, Owen, I will flick you my draft to help you with that.
Cool. Thank you very much. Anything else from anybody?
Just on the conference, I've seen JS Fest pop up in discussion from Anna, which is probably what she's been working away on. And that seems like it's something competing to what we're wanting to do. Well, not competing, but something different, but around the same space that we would want to be targeting.
Interesting. I had never even heard of that one.
I've seen it around. It says coming in 2019. Really all the information that is.
Yeah, cool. I mean, if we find, so James, if when you talk to her, this is actually what she's focused on, then that's fine. We might be able to help her out there, or there might be some alignment with the conference. There might not be as well with the society, but it would be good if she let us know at a simple level, and we can have a conversation from there.
And if that's not the one that Anna's been working on, but somebody else is listening who's like, hey, that's my thing, then I would encourage you to reach out to me, because I would love to have a discussion about how I can help.
Yeah, and I'm pretty keen to help out with the next conference as well. I'll just add that JS Fest to my to-do note to talk to Anna. So that's cool. Thanks for bringing that up, Fabian.
No problem.
Cool. Unless anybody else has any other business, then we can call that committee meeting to a close. Well, all that remains for me to say thank you all for showing up and giving us your time. We do appreciate it. And we will try and get another committee meeting in about a month's time. But everybody take care. I'll catch up with you online.
Catch you later.
Bye.